will hear from the Preservation of Affordable Housing, which is POA, in a presentation for a project called Garfield Greens, which will be on the corner of Fifth Avenue and Kedzie, right across from Marshall High School. So I'm going to turn it over to Bill Eager and his team from POA to begin the presentation, after which we will have a robust Q&A session. We're scheduled to go all the way up until 8 o'clock, and if we need a little extra time, we will allot for that, since we did not begin exactly at 6:30 as prescribed. So Mr. Eager and your team, please feel free to take it away.
So first, let me start off with who you will see and hear throughout this project. Bill Eager is the Senior Vice President of the Midwest region for Preservation of Affordable Housing. Molly Eckert is the Vice President of Development, and my name is Felicia Dawson, and I'm the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships. POA is an owner, developer. We manage what we own, and we own what we manage. We have been around. This year will be actually 2021 will be our 20th year. We've been around in Chicago for about 10, and most of our staff here in Chicago are native Chicagoans. For the purposes of this particular competition, we've worked with NIA Architects, who's done some things around the city, and then Perkins and Wills, who's done some things with a similar type of competition, a similar type of work around the globe. So they had a particular expertise that we partnered with to do this particular competition application. And then we do not have a contractor yet. We will send that out for bid in the future. We, for POA, we are a Boston-based development company, but again, I've talked about we're here in Chicago, been here for about 10 years. We have offices in Washington, D.C. We have our management headquarters that's in Kansas City, Missouri. We own about 12,000 units in 11 states. Our primary focus is really, because we're a nonprofit developer, really trying to figure out how the unit becomes an asset for not only us, but the residents. So we have 3 arms to us, which is our development arm, our property management arm, and then our arm called community impact, and how the folks inside each and every one of our units is whole and can move to some type of other trajectory in their lives if they so choose. We've been active in and around Chicago for about 10 years. As I mentioned, we started our work in Woodlawn on the south side of Chicago. That was a 504 project-based Section 8 unit that we turned into something much bigger based upon what the residents, because the residents asked us to come into the community. We now have about 2,000 units around the city in betwixt and between the southwest, north sides of the city, and then some suburban areas. The work in Woodlawn really helped us to figure out a couple of things, that in order to have a balanced community, you need to have a balance of things. Number one, you cannot displace families. We don't do displacement. All of our projects, even when we were doing acquisition rehab deals or development, we always acquired a property, rehabbed it with the people in place, and brought them right back to the units. That's typically, and that's how we do. And all of our other bigger developments, like the ones here in Chicago, have all been about making sure we don't displace. We also realized that we had to have some mixed income. We also realized that retail, and really having retail that makes sense, that community says they need. I always say resource amenities, trying to bring those to the community, and then home ownership, and looking at this from the spectrum of what we say affordable home ownership to whatever that ownership may look like. So we even had a project called Renew Woodlawn in Chicago, in Woodlawn, that really was about getting people into homes with lower incomes. So I'm going to turn it over to Molly, and she'll talk a little bit about the development project and how we got it.
Thanks, Felicia. So we wanted to orient everybody again. I know some people are very familiar with the project, but just what is C40? Why do we call it C40? How did we get to this spot right here in your neighborhood? And so C40, it is a network of cities. I think there were probably 40 to begin with, but cities around the globe that are committed to in the environment. So to solving problems of air quality and pollution and water and climate change, really. So Chicago is a member of that network. And so a couple of years ago, this organization put out a call for projects in cities across the world to take sites that were vacant, where the city could do something there, and to make them a real demonstration project, a true investment in the city, maybe a part of the city that wouldn't traditionally have investment or hasn't had investment, and what could be on the leading edge of energy efficiency. What could we all learn to help combat climate change in our cities? And so the city of Chicago asked for groups of developers and architects, city of Chicago among, I think, 19 cities across the globe. So Mexico City and Paris, Madrid, Cape Town, all had similar competitions, which is why we talk about this as being a global thing. But right here, just at the corner of 5th and Kedzie, the city owns these 14 parcels. And they said, if we put this out there, what would you build? So we, along with Perkins and Will and NIA, again, we worked with NIA before on Woodlawn Station and in Woodlawn, which was a TOD project. And we really believed in the importance of TOD happening everywhere across the city. And so we saw this project, and it was an opportunity to come together with Perkins and Will and NIA and propose something really special here. So we learned a couple of years ago, or no, about a year ago, that we would be designated the developer there. Here, I would say that because it was a competition, there wasn't a lot of community engagement, and we made that part of our proposal. That was something that we always do. We want to do transformational projects with community, and that's been part of our proposal from the beginning. We did not continue until we knew the Lightfoot administration would support this project. Again, leadership changed in City Hall around the time that we learned we could build the project. But when the Lightfoot administration, the Department of Housing, said that they would fund the project early this year, then we started to get to work. So although that was around the time that COVID hit, but that's what we talk about. And this is the project, the competition, just a rendering, but that's what sort of we had proposed, is these two buildings right here at 5th and Kedzie. So what did we propose? We're talking about a cutting edge, energy efficient project, two buildings that would be passive house certified. That's our proposal, but equity, community driven, and community serving. Phase 1, which is the rendering, again, this is from the competition that you're looking at, it would have 40 to 50 apartments and about 5,500 square feet of retail. So 3 or 4 commercial sites. And then the project that you've seen on the left would be the second phase with 30 to 35 owner occupied units, about 2 or 3 storefronts. But mixed income, but affordable, above all, at rents that are existing in the neighborhood. So for people that are already living in Garfield Park with ties to the community, would be first in line to live there, with retail developed with major input from the community. I think we believe that community benefits are important above all in this project. It's sort of without any of this kind of equity and opportunity, access to jobs, it's sort of meaningless. So, you know, we prioritize and we'll work with the aldermen to make new construction jobs available to community residents. As with all our projects, to have a priority for Black-owned contractors and subcontractors, and to exceed the city requirements. Priority for retail tenants that are based in the neighborhood or already have a business in the neighborhood, will cycle that wealth back through the community. And again, as I said before, leasing outreach and priority for existing residents for both buildings, for both the rental and homeownership aspects of that. And beyond, I think, you know, we're open to continued dialogue about what a beneficial project looks like. So as I mentioned before, we kind of, you know, had hoped to walk blocks and have in-person meetings and really meet a lot more people, but we've gotten creative because of the pandemic. We know it's a tough time, but we've talked to dozens of groups, like one-on-one. We've had individual interviews. We've talked to Black co-presidents. There's some groups we've come back to a couple of times. It's an imperfect process, but we launched a website so that we could kind of have a central place for information. We sent out a mailer in August to about 5,500 households that got that, so that, you know, everyone could know about the project, know where they could go to learn more, know where they could go to ask a question, you know, hopefully to start a dialogue. So we had an online survey, which about 75 people responded to. We have sort of 500, 600 like unique comments on there. About 1,900 people have visited the website. We have 130 subscribers. So again, it's no substitute for traditional community engagement, but it's been something that we could do in the middle of the pandemic. And looking at that survey, over half of the people that have responded have lived in the neighborhood for over 10 years. Almost everybody responding is a resident. I think 35% of the people said they lived in the neighborhood for over 20 years. So we feel like we got a lot of feedback. And we've, sort of organized those comments, summarized them. We've shared them with the aldermen. We've shared them with groups working with businesses in the area. Anybody that asks, I think we've learned a lot. There's just a lot of things that people want us to know about the neighborhood. People are passionate. And we found a lot of growing level of support for this project, a lot of engagement, a lot of ideas for design about what units should look like, what materials should look like, landscaping, what makes a safe parking lot, what makes a safe site, things that we should know about the neighborhood culture and context and history that might show up in an art display, things of that nature, and support for contemporary design. I mean, this building design is different, but I think a lot of people said that they like the look of it. Some people aren't convinced, but really like the way the building looks if it's sort of rooted in the neighborhood context and character. But ideas for how to support the community, landscaping, kind of what will make a safer and healthier building post-COVID. So those are some of the things we've learned so far. And I looked at I think a few of our architects are on tonight. I think I saw Alan and Doug. I know they're listening and eager to get people's concepts. They know that our design, like Felicia said, we've got the bones, but we're by no means all the way there in terms of what we're gonna build. So I know they've been able to pay attention and have kind of changed the look of, you're looking at the South building, but have changed it slightly. So it looks a little bit more like a typical Chicago building, has more of a courtyard feel, has more landscaping at the front, uses a brick base and some other materials that give it kind of more of a residential feel. We've looked at a dedicated community room, some different landscaping. So just, we're eager and on a journey here to try to build the best building we can. And we're listening. So, but I think we need a little more guidance. So I think, that's why we're here tonight. We're happy for the aldermen to be kicking off this kind of period of increased engagement. I think Felicia was gonna talk about some of the things we want to continue to learn.
So I think what I'm seeing in the comments, I think what we all agree on is, as you've mentioned several times, the way this was set up, it didn't necessarily gear itself towards community engagement the way we do it. The competition being the global one, they just had specific parameters that they put in place. So we, in our application, requested community engagement as a part of what we do. And in that, we try not to make decisions for things that are crucial for any parts of the project without in talking to community and what they'd like to see. We see ourselves as, for the most part, technical assistants. We do development, that's what we do, and we manage property, that's what we do. But the community lives there, so they know what they'd like to see and they know what they need. So helping us think about building design. The competition really kind of laid out some of the criteria around this, thinking about climate control and energy efficiency at a global level in a context of a neighborhood like ours here at Garfield. So what we want to do, while some of the bones, as we've talked about, of the building have to meet the competition guidelines, the building design definitely should look like some of the feedback. We got some of the things that the neighborhood character and culture, and should reflect that. So we need guidance on that. Retail mix and recruitment, I can't say enough. We need your help and support. And the work that we learned, some lessons we learned in Woodlawn is, we were willing to sit and wait and hold until we could find owners who are ready to get into their own spaces, amenities that people want to see and resources people want to see in their communities that they could walk to in their neighborhood. People from the neighborhood, around the neighborhood, Black-owned businesses could be a part of. So we took our time, we did that, and we really tried to find that retail mix that made sense. And we want to do the same thing here. Even our unit mix, affordability levels. We always talk about affordability, affordable housing. What does affordable mean? And who is the who that we would be building for? We need you to help us think through that for some of this project. So again, it's kind of like we applied for the competition kind of laid out where, and the parameters were such in terms of this climate control, energy efficiency, guidelines, but what we said is that's just the bones. We really want to work with community to try to figure out how do we put the meat on the bones in a real way. So this is just the beginning of a long conversation and partnership, and we love to talk to anybody who wants to talk to us, wherever that may be. Even if we're in different places, we're going to sit down and figure out how we get to the same space. I will say that because we manage what we own and we own what we manage, we're not going anywhere. So it's not like we're going to build a property, we're going to leave and be gone. If we'll come to block club meetings, community meetings, we'll come to the churches. Obviously, COVID has shut down a lot of that activity, but that's typically how we work. And if you see us on Sunday, you'll see us on Monday, because we're in the neighborhood for the next 20 years. We're not 20, 30 years. We're not going anywhere. So part of our formula is that type of engagement. So I'm going to give it back to Molly to talk a little bit about the timeline, or the thinking of what we were thinking about in terms of the timeline.
Sure, and I saw a note about putting back other slides. I think the final slide will have some more contact information, but so this is where we are. I think starting late this spring, early this summer. Again, we've been, hosting small virtual meetings and calls, and doing a little bit of distance door knocking. We've held office hours all throughout November. We've been publishing updates. Again, we put that survey up, which got about 75 responses, and there's still a version of it up on the website if you'd like to fill it out. We have, people that could call you or talk to somebody that, again, just very eager to reach out. So through the winter, continuing to do community engagement, hoping to launch some more in-depth design discussions with the aldermen, in partnership with the aldermen. We will hopefully submit a zoning application so that we can be on our way to submitting a building permit this summer. But throughout the spring, we'll be doing kind of housing and affordability training, just letting people know exactly how to get into the housing. We're doing some work on shared ownership with the Chicago Rehab Network and the Chicago Community Loan Fund. They're working to kind of get a series of shared ownership projects off the ground throughout the city, and this project is one of them. So we've been working with them, and they're hoping to host a study circle for people in the neighborhood that are interested. So we'll be sharing information about that in the next couple of months. Job and contractor recruitment, that's something that we've done, especially on passive house projects, which have a little bit of a different construction design, but we reached out, just put out a blanket call to contractors and subs to learn more, to make sure that we kind of get the numbers and information that we're looking for when we get the bids back. So we'll be doing that outreach this spring. And again, hoping to submit a building permit this summer so that we can start construction this fall. And following up would be about a year, so that the building would open in fall of 2022, and we would start leasing that spring and summer. So that's what we are looking at for schedule. So
what I wanted to do is recap a couple of things that I know we heard that I just want to highlight. We keep saying the bones on the building, and I also saw in the comments that applying for funding. We actually did not apply for any funding. The city has made this a priority in the new administration, and we appreciate that, but we actually can't move forward on a lot of the things that we have in our plans until we have these conversations to some extent. So we really hope that we can start to begin to engage even more with you based upon the work that we already, and some of the things that we've done. We've done a little bit of door knocking and some definite flyers, but we felt like at least if we could use the technology, whatever level it was, to at least get people to hear about it, to get a buzz, to get people to think about it, and do what you're doing, talking. So what I've heard us is, you heard a little bit about us, what we do. You can see what we've done on the South Side. The city of Chicago had a competition, global cities like Cape Town, Madrid were all competing against little Chicago on the West Side to do this climate kind of control, energy efficient type of project in the context of our neighborhood like ours, Garfield. So we applied. We've not named the project, starting from the name to some of the other meat on the bones. We don't have any of that. So there's still a lot of work to be done with the community. We've got about 80 units, some 70 to 80 units. Some of them are rentals, some of them are home ownership. this concept of equity and thinking about ownership in terms of shared mutual housing is something that's new, new in terms of this type of project that we're trying to bring. And you'll hear more about that too, because that really does get into the meat of how community can own and be a part of the ownership of how their neighborhood grows. We talked about legacy residents. I heard this a lot. We've got some very strong thoughts and ideas and directions from community, and they talk about legacy. So one of the things that we've been talking about to a couple of neighbors is this issue of working through how do we get people from the neighborhood into units as you open up a new building. Oftentimes when you start to lease, it's just first come, first serve, and it's just this all call. We're being targeted and intentional about marketing to the folks in the neighborhood. That's what we want to do. And if we start early, you can have all the people that live in the neighborhood go right into those units that are there. We know we got to do some construction work, and we know we got to work on construction jobs. So we'll be working with that. These are some of the things that we've heard, and we'll definitely take more questions. We just want to make sure people knew that we've still got work to do, and we can't do it alone. We've got to do it with you.
Let me go over a couple of things based on the conversation and the things that we've seen in the chat. By no stretch of the imagination is this a done deal. There has not even been a zoning application filed. Nothing has happened in a sense that makes this item by any stretch of the imagination a done deal. This was a highly unique project with C40, and even the designs and everything were totally confidential until after the award was made. At that point, we began having conversations. So again, all of what I would consider the traditional risk and the steps that they have taken thus far have totally been on the developer, because it is possible that going through this process, we find that this is not something that is suitable for the community. So let's be clear about this. This is not something that is set in stone. This is, again, the first conversation that has been had, at least hosted in a form we traditionally would do in Garfield Park, in the 28th Ward. And again, as I said before, the risk is on the developer. The developer does have a timeline, but again, that timeline is something that is not set in stone. So again, we want to have this conversation. This is by no means the traditional way we do things. We understand that we are in an environment right now that does not allow us to have the normal interactions that we would. But thankfully, we have vaccines that are being administered as we speak, and that hopefully early in the spring, we could get back into more of a traditional setting. Given the governor's orders right now, this is the best that we can do given the situation. But we anticipate for that to go down. This site sits across the street from a high school where we have adequate space to have these conversations, but we just cannot do that right now today. So I know understand that there are concerns about affordability. There are concerns about displacement, and rightfully so. And so it's our jobs and obligations to have these conversations and to work with community to find a path that it may not be 100% agreement on, but where we find that it is a representative of the community and something that we all can work with and something that everyone can be proud of in its final iteration. And one thing I do want to talk about as it relates to affordability and the lack of what I would consider to be rental stabilized or subsidized units in East Garfield Park. There are not very many units that have what we call a rent control, meaning tied to some level of affordability. In the last 5 years, we have either built or rehab newer units. They've been on the western portion of East Garfield, one primarily near Fifth Avenue in St. Louis, and also the renovation of the property at Fifth Avenue in Millard. It is going to be necessary for us to find affordability and to create units that have some tie to some other measures other than market rates. I live in East Garfield Park. This project is probably a block and a half from where I live in East Garfield Park. So I am concerned, as not only as the alderman, but also as a neighbor, that I do not want to see people continue to be displaced out of the community. And part of having a strategy against displacement is having places for individuals that can reside in a manner that the rent cannot just rise at the whim of anyone, but that it is controlled and have some government or interaction and intervention that will take place. This is a question from Brian. What are the ethnic and cultural demographics of those who ask for this development in the community? I'm going to give that to POA. Actually, we can also chime in on that. This was affordable housing has been something that has been talked about primarily in East Garfield Park. When this was brought up as far as one of the sites in the city that could participate, given the nature of what it was, using low-income tax credits as housing. We had just built a new development, Harvest Homes, as I stated earlier, on the corner of St. Louis and Fifth Avenue, which is a new development that has, a brand new development, similar, not similar in style, but with the types of affordability components that this would have. So knowing that affordability is very important in East Garfield Park, this site was presented, and then we told them, I gave them the go-ahead to put the site in the RFP process for consideration. So that is how this site specifically became part of the process. That was a question from Brian.
Can I add to that, Alderman?
Yes, please.
So I think the other thing that we'll say is we're intentional. I don't necessarily back, even if it's my own company where I work, I don't necessarily back projects that I don't think make sense and don't help the Black communities. So I will tell you that there is no hidden attempt to not keep anybody from the neighborhood to be a part of this effort, from either working on the site to being a contractor, living in the units. That is why we've just started Bones, to get you to help work with community to help us think about who else from the neighborhood could come. And I think the idea of starting the leasing of the units, looking at home ownership early on, getting people in the path to own, it could be people from the neighborhood who it should be. And it can be with your help and work with us. And I'm not going to even say help, I'm going to say work. This is going to be hard work. This is going to be meeting after meeting. This is going to be thinking through how we have to do it. But this could be all people from this neighborhood if we start early and we start together. So that's definitely our intent. And we've done it, and people have not been displaced. But at least for the people that we've worked with, this is not a displacement project. The name of our company is Preservation of Affordable Housing. So we don't do displacement. We try to keep it in place. Thank you.
Okay, another question from Hawks. What is considered affordable? Also, what is the income base needed to live in this community? How did POA come up with this as a project? So again, let's talk about affordability. Let's talk about rent levels. Let's talk about income levels under the LIHTC tax credits as part of the application.
Exactly, Alderman. So the apartment building, the first phase would be financed with the low-income housing tax credit. And we're estimating the rents are around affordable at, for somebody making $35,000 to $40,000 a year, family, starting with a smaller family and going up from there. But again, this is something we've asked about and continue to ask about, but looking at a mix of 1s, 2s, and 3s. And 1 bedrooms, we're looking at rents around $750. 800, 2 bedrooms, 900 to 1,000, 1050, 3 bedrooms. I'm sorry, three bedrooms around $1,000, $1,100. So those are the types of rents that we're looking at from the outset. And for the homeownership piece, we're still studying that very carefully, but we're looking at kind of a purchase price that's heavily discounted to sort of what you could typically buy a condo in the neighborhood for. So making it affordable to people that are at a low and moderate income.
Okay, so you stated rent around beginning around $750, income levels $35,000 to $40,000, which equates to about $16, $17 an hour. to break it down to that point. Um,
And then in addition, as you're doing that, Alderman, in addition, we got, some of this we got because I know that some of the folks that live there, because I too lived on the west side, some folks that live in the neighborhood are saying they're trying to get 2 bedrooms and they're paying $1,200, $1,300 for 2 bedroom units. So we're saying, we're trying to figure out how we can provide a product that's lower than that rate, because that's not affordable for that person that you just told us making $16 an hour. So, and then you've got to have the blend, the mix. So we're also looking at the home ownership. We're also looking at some market, because you want to live in the neighborhood you've lived in all your life, but you might make more than $35,000 a year. So how can you have a nice new building and still live in your neighborhood? So having the blend is what we're shooting for.
okay, one question, it says that the design looks like it will take up more than the lots that are there. How will you accommodate the residents in the footprint? And can we talk about the current footprint that you're looking at, and how many overall units this will be? And will you be, well, you can't go outside the footprint. So let's just talk about the footprint to let everyone know exactly what you all are looking at.
Sure. So it's the block. It's a whole block, and it's vacant land right now. 2 vacant blocks between Troy and Kedzie, south of Fifth Avenue. So it's a lot that the city owns. On the south side, it's I believe it's 10 parcels, and then across the street, it's also 4 parcels that the city owns, also vacant land. Right next to where Gigi's Lounge used to be. So, but no, the building will only take up the amount of land that is vacant there. And we're imagining about 70 to 80 units when the whole project is built.
Okay, so to be clear, the area that we are discussing is bounded by, the project is potentially in 2 phases. Phase number 1 would be bounded by um, Fifth Avenue on the north, Kedzie on the west, a half a block east, which is Troy on the east, and the alley to the south. So that is approximately 6 or 7 traditional city lots on that corner. Phase 2 of the project would be across the street, which again would be bounded by, the south side of it would be Fifth Avenue, the west side being Kedzie, the north side being the alley before Monroe, and the east side or the right side, if you're looking at it, would be right up against the building where Gigi's Lounge is, that 6 flat right there that pretty much Troy dead ends into right there. So that is the footprint that we are discussing. That is the only land that is being discussed as part of this particular project. Another question is, how does this help legacy residents, and what side of the community are you talking to? How does climate control help those who are struggling with rising cost of living? So those are questions from Mr. Daniel Downer. If we can answer those questions.
Sure. I think I guess I would say maybe I'll start with the climate thing first. Is that the building? I think somebody had asked earlier on what is passive house, and it's a way of building a building that's oriented, has a lot of insulation, sort of faces the sun, has tree cover such that you don't need as much energy to heat and cool it as you typically would. So it uses a lot less energy, and we're hoping to offset everything we use with solar energy. So I know there's been a lot of some activity in the neighborhood with community solar and trying to coming out ahead of that. But I think we hope that will affect people's pocketbooks, and that there won't be electricity bills for anybody living in this building, or they'll be very low if they have them, so that they'll be offset kind of on average year round. But how does it help legacy residents? I mean, I think we hope to work with you, the people on this call, to find the people that will live there. I mean, honestly, we have a phone number set up, and I get these calls all the time. How can I get an application? You know, when do I sign up? And I tell people in a couple of years. I think there's a need, and I think we want to work with everyone to design a building where, it feels very rooted in the community, it feels part of the community. It's a place where people have opportunity to live. So, and to have businesses that cycle well through the community that are services that people are missing, places that people will patronize and be able to work.
I think the other answer to the other thing, if you don't mind me offering, Alderman Ervin, is this is just one project of many other things that the Alderman talked about could be possible here. So I think this project becomes a platform to do other things, like what we're hearing from people who've been here a long time, own their own homes, minor home repair. You know, the Alderman's been asking for those types of resources. How do we have a platform to think about that and couple and leverage this, what we're doing or we're trying to do together, with recruiting and trying to identify those resources for the neighborhood. So there's just great potential that can come from this one small project.
Okay, fourth. A question from Hawks states that the community does not really need retail because there are small malls in the neighborhood already. How does this project help the school across the street? That being Marshall High School. And let me open with, I agree that the retail has changed. And what retail was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and quite in fact, even last year, is not the same. So if you could talk about the amenities and the first floor of the traditional retail facing portion of the project, what types of activities or what types of users are you looking for that ground level traditional retail space? And also talk about what your interaction or what the interaction has been with Marshall High School, which is located directly to the west of the project.
Sure. Alderman, I would say that we have done some surveys, kind of leakage surveys, just in the website to begin with, finding out what people are missing in the neighborhood. Obviously, there are businesses there, and supporting them is the number one, around the building, or supporting them is the number one priority. But we found that a lot of people are still looking for sit-down restaurants, for cafes, coffee shops, stuff that place to get healthy food kind of options in the neighborhood. So we are talking to groups there, also convenience services, talking to other partners to see if there's sort of a health use, something that so yeah, a variety of groups that could serve the neighborhood but aren't necessarily traditional retail. And we've reached out to Principal Pool across the street. I think it's been challenging this year because there isn't just students coming and going across the street at Marshall High School, but we've offered, and if anybody's connections would like to sit down with students there to help them do planning, to help kind of have them learn about passive house, some of the construction technologies that we're using across the street, to find a way to have internships at any organization. I think we very much want to be engaged with the high school and know that they would support businesses, and there would be a real connection between the school and the development. We know that above all.
Okay. One comment, and actually this is an interesting comment that I want to make a comment. It says that it will attract other development, which will also drive up housing costs in the community. Let's be clear. Housing costs in East Garfield Park are rising. They are definitely rising. Rents for local residents where rent control units are not in existence are rising. The worst thing that we could do as a community is to do nothing. While we must work in a collective manner. So I do want us to understand that if we do nothing, that these housing costs will continue to rise around us. And the lots that we look at that are owned by the city, but a lot of lots are owned in private hands. And so we have a responsibility, I believe, to work to preserve the affordability in East Garfield Park and use the tools that the government has at its disposal, including low-income tax housing credits, which will give affordable units of housing for not only legacy residents, but also young families that want to move into our community as well. So I think we have to keep that in mind. We all answered about the slide deck being available. Parking. What is the parking design for this project? That's a question that has come up. And again, please remember, 312 is the call-in number if you are watching and have a particular question that you want to ask. So again, 312 is the dial-in number. Could you go back to the question about parking, Molly?
Sure. Right now, we're looking at about 20 spaces for the south building. So that's about one space for every 2 units. And similarly for the building to the north. I think recognize that not everybody has a car. And again, we're taking advantage of the properties being designated as transit-oriented development with proximity to both the blue and the green line and the Kedzie bus. But also, I think would try to, another connection with Marshall High School, try to look at overflow parking for retail tenants or guests in an official capacity across the street, so that we're taking advantage of the parking that exists in the neighborhood, but making sure there's enough for the convenience and safety of residents, guests, and customers.
Okay. One comment is that more community involvement is necessary. 35% of unverified residents online is not sufficient. How do we know people from the neighborhood agree with this? How do we know people from the neighborhood will have access to these units? That is from Trina. Could we, Molly or Felicia, answer that for her?
So this is just the beginning. I think what we just started with, again, the way to at least get the word out so people could have something to do what you're doing, talk about. But we want more of these conversations. We want your input. I've heard somebody mention even retail. We want you to tell us what you'd like to see. So then we, as the technicians, can go help figure out how we make that happen with you. So we want to get, if we could get 100%, that'd be great. That's always what we shoot for. And the goal is to get everybody in the room or in conversations on a Zoom, on a conference call, whatever it is. And we talk through what it is you'd like to see. Because some of these are really, I saw someone say these are big issues, and they do lead to big issues. And I think that, like, I will just reiterate, this is just one project in many that can start a kind of this beginning of some other things happening in the community. So, or to happen, that won't happen to you, but with you. And that's what we're trying to do. So a lot of the questions that you have not been decided completely because we need to talk to you. So that's why we're here, and we'll be available. We have office hours, we'll do Zooms, we'll do placements outside. We'll come to somebody's block and sit outside and have a conversation. We'll go to safe spaces, we'll do that. We will do whatever it takes.
Okay. Again, some of the questions and comments in the chat, I think, deal from the point of, from the beginning of the project, lacking the what would be traditional community inclusivity. Can you really hone in on the C40 process and how we got to where we are today, and then I will talk about how we will move forward. So I think some of the frustration that you are seeing and that you are hearing is based on the fact that a lot of what happened in the C40 design process was highly confidential. To be very honest, I did not see the designs of the project or know the winners or what was happening with the project. The only thing that we were asked about was, would the land be available for an affordable housing project? And again, we know what affordability looks like. We know what it is. So let's understand this is the beginning, not the end. But can you talk a little bit about C40? Talk about their process. Talk about how you got to where you are, and quite honestly, talk about the number of applicants all over the world that participated in this particular project.
Sure, Alderman. So I think, I think we were recognized that it was a kind of a closed door process from the beginning. There was no sort of community jury or community input. And we had that feedback for the Department of Planning. Again, we thought it was an important project, and we could build a great project here. But, we told the Department of Planning that this is a drawback. They did sort of launch a small survey halfway through the competition, which helped guide some of our thinking. We heard some of the ideas, but again, as we said, we made community engagement a big part of our proposal. And we wanted to make sure that it would be a project that would be funded, that the city would build before we really got out ahead of the planning this year. So, but as far as the competition as a whole, I know that 19 cities across
Can you
the
turn
globe
down the other thing in my
participated. So,
mic?
oh, sorry, can you hear me?
No, go ahead.
No, I think in Paris and a lot of South American cities. I think Rio de Janeiro, Madrid, Cape Town, Auckland, New Zealand. I think there were projects like this kind of proposed all over, and they had a large award ceremony, I think about a year ago, kind of showcasing a lot of what those projects could be. So again, what the emphasis is, I think no matter where they are, no matter the site context, no matter the community that they're in, they're really trying to get away from dependence on traditional sources of energy and to build really clean, healthy projects that that benefit the surrounding communities.
Okay. One question that I just received about the available units. What is the selection process? How would one apply for that? And furthermore, if you have callers that are holding, please put them through so that we all can hear the questions that they are asking. But go ahead on the application and selection process.
So typically what we do is when we're getting ready to do a development and we know we're getting ready to deliver units, we start out at least 3 to 6 months early and we send out um, what we call intake cards, or letting people know, just kind of market the area, letting people know that we have these units available. There is leasing criteria that you have to adhere to, where we do background checks, we do credit checks, we do income verifications, but we try to start that process early on, and all of those checks go for 18 or and older in the household. But we try to start a little earlier in the process so that people know what to expect. I think what we were thinking with this effort, as we got some feedback from residents, is to start even sooner, kind of listing out all of the criteria around every funder in the project, how we finance these deals, like the tax credit, they have requirements, everybody has requirements. So bundling those all together and letting people know ahead of time what they need to get prepared, what do we look for, telling them even a little, maybe even 6 months to a year out, what we would be looking for in order to lease and fill some of those units. So we're pretty kind of straightforward. We do, as I said, we do background checks. We do credit checks. We look for if you've had evictions, if you've not paid utilities. Then there's some strict income guidelines, and depending on, if we can work with CHA to help us get some of the lower income families into some of those units. They have guidelines and criteria that we have to follow. So it'll be a blend, but the key is to start early enough so people know that live in the neighborhood, know what the process is, and can get a jump start on it as soon as possible. So that's how we do our process.
Okay. One point about the land in the area, a point about the city freezing access to land in the immediate Garfield Park area. And I will address that along myself and also with Alderman Walter Burnett, who we share East Garfield Park with. A lot of this activity came about around the a large lot program where people were able to purchase lots for $1 if they owned a lot on that particular block. What we began to see were individuals who currently own vacant properties beginning to try to acquire more vacant property, meaning that they were not doing anything productive with the land that they own, but yet wanted to purchase additional lands from the city of Chicago at the great rate of $1. So it is correct that both of us work to put a stop on those land sales because, in my opinion, that would have led to additional, uh, you know, market value properties being built that no one, in many cases in the community, could afford. So a part of this process, including the location that we're talking about now, uh, was taken out of not out of the inventory, but where people would be able to purchase them, as the Department of Planning and Housing have been working on a housing development study looking at affordable housing development in the area. We talk about the ability to have units that we know what the rent will look like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, up to 30 years. So it is very important that we not just let a free for all occur in East Garfield Park. Otherwise, you will begin to see even more rapidly built homes that will continue to work to price individuals out of this particular community. So that hold is still in place. The housing study, to my understanding, will be finished in either the first or second quarter of 2021, in which those ideas will be brought to the community to see what it is that we as a community would like to implement. So that is something that is ongoing, and again was designed so that these properties, these city-owned lands, would not. Let me repeat that: would not go into the hands of private for-market developers that therefore would price individuals out of this out of the community. Um, okay.
While you're doing that, Alderman,
Go
can I
ahead.
just, one more comment? I think what I'm seeing in the chat that I think I just want to reiterate a few times. I think if done in partnership with each other, there is no displacement. We don't do displacement. If you look at what our track record in the community, what we've done, we don't do displacement. So even though you may have seen that in other scenarios, displacement does not have to happen. And I think if we work together, get a little bit more into how these things work, you'll learn that this doesn't even have to be. This could be the start of a real trend in Garfield in a way that works the way you would like to see it happen. So I just really want to encourage people to know that this is not about displacement, intentionally or unintentional, because we know the ramifications of short-term 15, 20, 40 years out. So typically our properties are 30, 40 years out for affordability. So.
Okay. Well, one question about door-to-door outreach. Given where we are today, door-to-door outreach, while it is the best method of communication in the past 6-8 months, has not been the most practical point of communication. I do believe that some mail has gone out. They've opened up the website, and again, those are not the best ways to communicate. And I will readily admit and understand that these are not the best ways to communicate. Quite frankly, this conversation tonight is not the best way to communicate. However, we still need to continue processes, gain feedback. We do have residents that do have the ability to communicate, and we do have residents that may not have the necessary internet access. Out of all of the platforms between Zoom, cable, and Facebook, we're trying to hit as many people as possible with this method of communication. And we still will have face-to-face meetings when the ability will allow for. So let's not forget that we will still have interaction face-to-face as the health guidelines would allow. Hopefully, people in our community will get vaccinated so that we can have those interactions. We see those numbers beginning to go down, and we will have those particular interactions. We have a caller, I understand. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, Alderman. I have been listening to the conversation for only a few minutes. So I want to acknowledge that. And I have to say that this all sounds very exciting. My concern, and so I don't know if you've addressed this yet, is I feel like I see a lot of development within the ward, and I feel like the development is pushing west, and this all sounds fantastic as it comes to the East Garfield Park community. But my concern is that when it comes, the people who are there now won't actually be the ones who get to enjoy it. So I guess what I'm concerned about is displacement, frankly. Is this something that the people who are there going to have an opportunity to enjoy, or will all these nice things come and I won't be able to afford to live there anymore?
Okay, that's a very good question. Actually, a very good observation. A lot of the development that you are seeing today is market rate development that is being done on private land owned by individuals. What I'm saying is that you go and you purchase a vacant lot, you purchase market rate, you say you want to build a house, a 2 flat, a 3 flat on that particular land, you have the right to do that. That is what is happening currently across the community. These are typical market factors working for building in the community. What this particular development works to do is to keep areas of affordability in the community. I have seen rents as high as $1,500, $1,600 for 2 bedroom apartments in East Garfield Park. My mortgage is less than what people are paying for rent in our community. So we definitely want people that live here want to stay here. We have to find reasonably affordable locations for folks to be in. I'll give you a case in point. Harvest Homes Development, which sits on the corner of St. Louis and Fifth Avenue, had 39 affordable units, 400 applications for 39 units on the outset. So there is a definite need for people looking for affordable homes, affordable housing. The CHA development, a block to the west, again, another 30 units of CHA housing, which is for individuals at some of the lowest area median income. Totally full family housing. So what you're saying is very important. It's very valid, and these are housing units that are needed in our community to preserve affordability for those that want to stay here, those who are currently here, and those that may want to move in our community. It is my desire that those that are living in this community will want to take advantage, those especially that are renting, to take advantage of the income restricted homes where it has the rents that are stable and they don't have to worry about the market factors that are existing across East Garfield Park. So I thank you for your question. And again, all right, caller, go ahead.
Good evening. So first of all, I am absolutely grateful that while we are in the pandemic, that there's a space to have this conversation. And I know some people wish that we could have had it in person, but I'm grateful for that. But the big question is you all have spoken a lot. Where can we get some information that we can actually see and digest and read? Or a website we can go to get more information, because there's a lot of conversation happening, and I just don't want to miss anything.
Okay, the website is www.c40garfield.org. Can we put that up on the screen for residents? www.c40garfield.org. Again, C40Garfield, that's GARFIELD.org. That is where you can see information. The slide deck that was placed up this evening will be available on that website, and that is the website that has all of the information about this particular project. Again, C40Garfield.org.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your call. Do we have any more calls? Okay, all right, thank you. You can please call in. Again, I understand this may not be the norm of how we have these conversations, but please understand that we are in a unique time in our society and in this world. It is not, my desire to hold it in this fashion. Those of you who know me, we're always in one-on-one or group conversations. But again, I think it's important for us to communicate and have these conversations with those that can, not leaving anyone out, because we will, when health guidelines will allow us to have additional conversations in a more traditional fashion. Felicia, Molly, do you have any other comments? I'm going to check the chat box to see if we've got anything else.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm going to keep saying, I'm going to keep saying, I think that we have, what we've done so far is only put the bones together. We can't put the meat, we can't move forward until we get the meat, and the meat comes from working with you guys. So these conversations, and I don't know if I can say that, I don't know if we can say this, but I'll say it. We don't mind having meetings if it's social distance required. We don't mind having those face to face. We'll come anywhere. We'll do any meeting. We'll talk to any, but we'll hash it out. We have not only a website, we have an email, we have a cell phone. We do office hours on the phone. You can call in and we'll talk to you. We'll do any of that because we know COVID has just been a problem, and it has been. A lot of us are higher risk than others. I think the other thing is, I don't mind, and I am unapologetically in love with being Black. So I support Black ownership, Black folks from the neighborhood, getting into the units, people who have lived here. The question that the caller just had, the way we get around ensuring displacement is we start now lining up people to buy some of these houses that we want to build, lining up people to get into the units. You know, grandma has her niece, her granddaughter, her daughter's children, and they all need somewhere to go. You know who they are in your neighborhood. Telling them this is coming up and having them be on the list so that they can get prepared to get into some of these units. And then the third thing is, this is just one step. If we have these strong voices to fight for what you'd like to see differently, we didn't design this competition. We just applied. So now that we have the competition and it is here, let's use this as the platform to decide how you want things to happen with the alderman in your neighborhood. So the next development could be 80 units that looks different based upon something else you think and you feel you need. So I think this doesn't have to be that we're fighting against or that we're trying to do something to. We've just put the bones together and said, help us figure out how we do this based upon a need. And then we can all get to a place where we're all getting what we need.
Okay, can you talk about the unit mix? I have one question regarding will the units be for larger families? So what will the unit mix look like? How many 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms? Will there be any 4 bedroom units? Can you address the unit mix of the phase 1 portion of the project?
Sure, Alderman, we're looking at about half the units being 2 bedrooms, and then sort of from there kind of split between 1s and 3s roughly. We wouldn't build anything bigger than a 3-bedroom unit. So if in terms of a very large family, it's probably not something that will work within this building. But we are looking to have sort of a generous range of 1s, 2s, and 3 bedrooms.
Okay, so essentially the 25% 3 bedrooms, 50% 2 bedrooms, 25% 1 bedroom units. To answer that question, we will.
Somebody also asked Alderman about whether there will be any market rate units.
Okay, I just saw that. I was just about to ask that question from Igor from the Austin Weekly. Glad to know that Igor is on the line. He's our local reporter from the community newspaper. So Igor, his question is about market rate versus affordable units. If you can answer that, please.
Sure. Right now in that first project, there are no market rate units per se. Everything is protected as affordable housing and deed restricted for 30, 20, 30, 40 years, more likely 30 or 40 years. But there's a range of incomes in there. So it goes up, people that make up to $70,000 a year for a family of 4 could live there, but would mostly average around, the rents would be at the range of people making about $35,000 to $40,000 a year. So there's some flexibility on who can live there, but there are no market rate units per se.
Okay, again, similar to what we have at Harvest Homes, this is totally affordable for area residents. Again, as she said, it made around 35 to 40,000. Is that a family of 4, or is that was that number for a family of 4 or 3? If I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong.
see, I'll pull up my handy chart. I think so. If you're a single person, it's about making $30,000 a year. If you're a family of four, it's about 40 to 45. So
Okay. So a family of four at 45, two individuals making, $20,000, $25,000 a year. Again, which is, if you're working full time, that is actually below the minimum wage. So we're talking not a lot of money here. One individual says that we don't want it. Can that be heard? Your voices are heard. Pastor Kyle and Kene, we see what you have stated in the chat, and we respect your opinion. Again, Miss Molly, question is, has POA considered the second part of C40 for this project? That includes the community as owners and not just as tenants. Can you talk about phase 2 of the project? That's if we get past phase 1 of there. Can you talk about what your thinking is for phase 2?
absolutely. We've been thinking very hard about it, and we want to make sure that both projects happen. And we've heard a lot of people talking about community ownership, and not just sort of traditional condo ownership, but some sort of shared ownership, a cooperative. So we're working with the leading groups working in Chicago on shared ownership, as well as across the country. So groups in Wisconsin and Indiana, and that are also working to sort of set up these models so that they're successful. So we are looking at those units in the north building being owned in common with some kind of share price and share loan at an affordable rate, but that also that the expenses are held in common as well. Again, looking at really low utility costs, but figuring out kind of how people work together to maintain the building, care for the building, provide security and cleaning, and putting all those decisions in the long-term hands of the people in the community, organizations of the community. We're still trying to figure that out, but we are working with groups across Chicago that are really trying to train people that are interested in these types of communities and living situations, and do want to bring that training to interested people in the neighborhood in the next early next year.
Let's understand, and I want to be very clear, this is the beginning. This is not the end. This is the first time that we have engaged, even though it is not in the traditional manner that we normally would engage. This is the first community engagement around this project. I know that the folks from POA have done some things. However, this has been the first locally led community engagement conversation on this project. This will not be the last conversation regarding this project. It is incumbent on the developers to take the feedback that has been given, that they have been receiving over the past 6, 7, 8 months, and incorporate that feedback into what is being presented. Again, feedback received this evening, feedback from the website, all of which, to the extent possible, can be incorporated in this development, in this conversation. We have a call. Come on, caller. Come on through.
Hello, Alderman.
Yes.
How did you send out any mailers and emails? Could you give us a number of how many people you reached out to flyer?
Yes, we sent out 1,000 letters. I personally sent 1,000 letters to registered voters that live in the 36th, 33rd, and 2nd precincts, which encompass an area that goes from Holman on the west, Madison on the east, the Expressway on the south, and the ward boundary on the east, which is Sacramento. So if everybody that lived in that area, if they're a registered voter, them or their household would have received a letter talking about this evening, the time for this particular meeting, the fact that it was on Cable 27, the fact that it was via Zoom and Facebook. So understanding that we could not meet face to face, tried to use as many mediums as possible to have this conversation. Comcast is the cable franchise in the area. I know everyone doesn't have Comcast. I know everyone doesn't have Zoom. I know everyone does not have Facebook. But again, we're trying to reach as many people as possible. And if someone else has another medium by which they feel that we could garner more participation, please let us know. Open to that, not trying to hide anything. Want people to be engaged. Unfortunately, we just were not able to sit down and have a meeting like we normally would around these types of projects, given the nature of the health condition currently in the city of Chicago, in the community. So we will, continue to engage as we can. Want to stay within the health guidelines. Don't want anyone to come to a community meeting and end up sick or dead behind this vaccine. This is extremely personal to me. I have lost family members to this COVID. So I'm extremely careful and cautious when it comes to putting people's lives at risk and trying to, still do as much business as we can, but in the safest way possible. So let's think about that. Let's hopefully we will come through this. Again, vaccine number 2 is being shipped and being utilized. So hopefully in a couple of months, as more people get inoculated, we will be able to meet face to face. I pray that everyone takes the vaccine once it's available to you in your particular situation. I hope that our seniors are getting this vaccine, our frontline workers, our teachers, our grocery store clerks, our police officers, our firefighters, everyone as you can, please get vaccinated so that we do not have to continue to see the numbers of people that are dying from this disease. We have lost 6 times as many people in this country to COVID than we did to Vietnam. Let's think about that. We could fill up Soldier Field 5 or 6 times with the number of people that have died from COVID. So let's put this in perspective. And again, when we meet again, if it's virtually or in person, we will send out letters to the same almost 1,000 letters that were mailed. I will mail those letters again to make sure that people know when and where we will meet related to this project. But thank you for your call. Thank you for the question. Again, we are a little past 8 o'clock. I'm gonna check the chat box here.
While you checking, Alderman, what I'll offer is we would be more than happy to do a conference call, meeting on Zoom, those that have the ability. We have the ability to send the information, the slide deck in the mail if people don't have access to email. If you know some people that you want to have it, just let us know. We'll send it to you. We're willing to do any meetings with anybody, anytime. Just let's set it up. We've offered that to anyone, and we will continue to do so. At any point, and some, if we're social distance, we can do 1 or 2 people face to face. We don't mind that, and have a social distance conversation. We don't mind doing that either.
Again, thank you. I saw one comment, YouTube. We will definitely, if we have to meet like this again, we will work with YouTube as well. We have no objection, to increasing the number of platforms that we are operating on. So again, we just want to, this is the first conversation. This is not the last conversation about this. If we could put up on the screen the telephone number, there's also a text number where you can get updates and send information to. So if we could put that up on the screen as we begin to close out. First off, I want to thank CAN TV for giving us this platform on this evening. This is, I have not seen us do this, but nonetheless, I do want to thank CAN TV. These are our, this studio actually is in our community in the 28th Ward, and put significant resources into building this facility here in the 28th Ward over here near 13th and Wood. This is a public asset. There are classes. You can have your own show on CAN TV if that's something that you desire. Just reach out to CAN TV so that they can, they have some of the top of the line equipment here. this studio. All of this is being paid through cable access dollars. Let me tell you, they are some strong negotiators when it comes to getting cable access as we work with them as far as building this facility, getting the government programming that you see. So we just want to thank CAN TV for giving us this forum on this evening. Please let us know. Also, if you have still any questions, comments that you did not get specifically answered, we did get a lot of conversation and opinions, but if you have questions, please feel free to either reach out to the email address. If you all could please put that back up on the screen so that people can see the email address and the website and the telephone number. Oh, it is. I'm sorry, I can't see all of that in here. But if we can make sure that we have that available for everyone. Again, I want to thank Felicia and Molly from POA for presenting this evening. Again, if you need to reach our office, we can be reached at area code 773-533-0900. Also, email Jason at aldermanervin.com is my email address. If you have any other questions, comments, or concerns. Again, I want to thank POA, want to thank CAN TV, and I want to thank my staff as well for helping to facilitate this opportunity on this evening. Again, this is not the last conversation. This is just the first conversation that we're having on this particular development. And let's understand, East Garfield Park is in the what I would consider to be one of the best locations in our city. We are literally 30 minutes from anywhere you want to be in this metropolitan area. So let's understand where we sit, work with the jewel that we have, and preserve as much of the land for people that live here, legacy residents, our indigenous populations, for our community. I just want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. This recording will be available on the CAN TV website. It will also be uploaded to our Facebook, our Alderman Ervin Facebook account, so that it can be viewed again. And again, we will continue this conversation. This is not the last time we will talk about C40. Your input is welcome. Your comments are welcome. Your suggestions are welcome. Thank you, and God bless you, and enjoy the balance of your evening. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah to everyone. And let's remember the reason for the season, and let's help our fellow man, our fellow neighbor fly. Thank you all, and God bless, and good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.